So I'm joined by Ibrahim Maïga Djibo, who is the coordinator of the Peaceful Roads NGO in Niger, Africa. And Ibrahim, I know you've been collaborating with HealthBridge. Can you tell us a little bit about your work with them and your work in Niger?
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I work with HealthBridge about public space promotion. So what we are doing is advocacy for policy, because we need a policy at the national level to implement public space promotion at the local level. So we work on policy aspect and also in implementation of pilot project to change the infrastructure of public spaces in Niger.
So we've been talking about a possible pilot project that might serve as a model for other countries. What do you see as the big challenges for pilot projects like this?
Okay, our pilot project, the big challenges is that the government, the government officials, they need capacity building to understand the importance of public spaces, because without the agreement of the government, we can't implement at local level the pilot project. The second challenge will be the constraints, financial constraints. We need because the country is very big, my country is very big, so we need financial support to implement at the municipal level several parts to convince even the government officials and the municipal officials to agree to implement themselves some public spaces.
And so as you're working there, I know we experienced this in Vietnam, and it sounds like this is what's happening in your country as well, that once you get some success, you build on that and you show other successes and they let you do more. Is that how the process is working?
Yes, because at the first time we talked about public spaces. Let me say that in my context, public space is a growing issue. You know, in Niamey, which is the capital, we have seven parks for 2 million persons. So the first time now we are working to put on the social and the political agenda the issue of public spaces. So our idea with HealthBridge is to work on some models to have concretely some things, some project which was implemented, which we can use to convince the government officials and to convince the municipal officials. Because in the country, the specificity of Niger is that the policy is developed, is adopted at national level, and it is implemented at local level. So our work is to use the pilot project to convince the government, to convince the residents on the importance of public spaces, and so then if we share our success and we share the example we have done, we are thinking that there is a lot of possibility, a lot of opportunities the government can use, the municipality can use to develop, to construct, to build a lot of parks, a lot of public spaces whole the country.
That sounds fantastic, and that's very much what we're interested in too, as we've discussed. And we're also thinking that if we can be helpful to you in that process of bringing research, bringing perhaps methods for working with the stakeholders to build more capacity, we are very eager to understand that. So can you tell us a little more about what you think the research side could bring to you?
Yes, the research is very, very important in my context, because it will generate knowledge about the issue. Now we have just conducted a small study on parks in Niamey. We need a big study about public spaces, not only parks, about public spaces, to convince the government about the importance of public spaces, not only on parks. You see, because public spaces include streets, markets also. So we need, we really need currently a great study on public spaces, which can allow us to do a mapping, to collect the opinions of the citizen about what they think public spaces. So we need a great study on public spaces to have a great report which we can use to convince our government. Research is really needed currently in my context. Yeah.
I'm certainly glad to hear you say that it's not just about parks, because one of the things I've heard recently was the idea that developing countries don't need to focus so much on parks and things like that. They need to focus more on economic development, and therefore public space isn't so important. And yet, from my point of view, and I suspect from yours, that misses the point. Public spaces are places where you have markets and all the other opportunities.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think about, how you see that issue.
No, the issue is very, very important. The issue is really an urgent issue in our context because of urban growth. Now you have a lot of cities in Niger. So if we don't do anything now, we will have a lot of problems later. So the issue is really important. I think the government know that. The municipalities, they know that. All what we need to do is to launch a process. If we launch the process, I think it's not difficult, because in my context, governments they are open. You don't have problem to meet a minister. You don't have a problem to meet a mayor. And if you have arguments, if you can convince, we can mobilize political officials in my country. Yeah.
So the other thing I've heard here at the conference is the idea that public space is too expensive, or it's too expensive to acquire, or you can't get the funding for it. I'm sure you've thought about this, how to get the funding to acquire and develop the public space. Do you have strategies, and are you working with ways to create value that can help to fund the public space?
About funding, currently we are funded by HealthBridge and also UN Habitat through HealthBridge. So, but as I am an advocate, what I'm doing is I'm doing advocacy with international NGOs like Save the Children, like Oxfam, like Plan International, to convince them, also UNICEF, to convince them to be involved, to have programs about public spaces. Because their area of actions, public space threat them. Public space is related to health, related to climate change, related to youth promotion. So I'm advocating to mobilize the international NGOs, to mobilize UNICEF program of United States, to involve them in the promotion of public spaces. Also, as I work with parliamentarians in Niger, I am the technical advisor of parliamentarians networks. So I use my relationship to do advocacy, to do lobby, so that the government, the national budget of the government, propose something for public spaces. We are currently doing this advocacy. It may take time, but we are doing the advocacy. Because if we have national resources, it's more sure, it's more sustainable for public space promotion in Niger. And also about funding, we are talking with Christy Daniel of HealthBridge about how to mobilize the municipalities, because the municipalities, they have their own budget. So they have what they call municipal development plans. So we want to advocate for the inclusion of public space promotion in their municipal development plans. At this end, they will also at the local level, they will generate resources for public space promotion under our budget, but also the municipalities, they have local funders which can help them to promote public space at a local level.
Well, that seems like such a promising model, and I know we've been talking to HealthBridge about that as well, to use the pilot projects to generate wider citywide plans and even national plans and so on.
Yes, this is very important to have plans, master plans. So also with our discussion with Christy, we are talking about this aspect. We just talk about a small study on markets, and we need to have a master plan of all the local markets in Niamey. We are just talking about this. Master plan is very great, as we see about the presentations, because if we have a master plan, it's like we have idea of where we are and where we want to go, and with which means are you going to go there.
So this week we're at the World Urban Forum, and this is a very interesting time. It seems to me a little after a year, almost 2 years after the after the new urban agenda, and over 2 years after the Sustainable Development Goals. What has struck you? What are your impressions of the conference and your conclusions?
Okay, but my attendance to the conference was very great for me. It's a very good experience, because I learn. I am an advocate of policy, of infrastructure change. All the session I participate, I really have much great information on how I must conduct my process when I go back at home. So about policy, I learned that it's very important in public space promotion. We need to have good policy. We need to do good advocacy, to mobilize officials to have great policy. If we had good policy, we are on the road, as I said same in my country, we are on the road to have great public spaces. Also, the municipal level, I learned that the municipal level is very important in the implementation of the new urban agenda. So I have a lot of municipalities in my country. The task is huge. The task is really great, and I think World Urban Forum is a very good experience for me, for what I'm doing, and for my country.
Well, it's certainly been an amazing learning experience for me as well, and meeting and networking with you and many other people. I think we're all learning a lot and sharing our lessons with one another, which is what we have to do. So Ibrahim Maïga Djibo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me.